Hi, welcome back. Part 3 of the diesel heater install. So part 1 was our unboxing, part 2 was the installation of the AU Focus. Now part 3, as you'd know, is about quietening down the fuel pump. I'm going to be focusing our attention outside at the fuel pump. We'll get a bit of an idea of what the ticking sounds like and what we can do about it to muffle it, because the night time will be different. Things are quieter, as you know. And it will become more evident, and also, you know, we're also conscious of our neighbours as well. So if we can avoid having a ticking sound outside, or as much of it as possible, then that's a win. So I'm going to hop out of here and I'm going to turn this off in a minute. I'll show you what the ticking sound sounds like now, just with it on the chassis. I'm starting to sweat up a storm in here, which is the point, but let's go out there now and have a listen to what it sounds like without doing anything to it. Okay, we've got a bit of a breeze outside here, and I've got the exhaust running in the background, but there's our fuel pump with nothing done to it. I'll bring the camera right to it so we'll get a consistent sound from it right next to it. Okay, we can hear it. It's not overpowering, but we can hear it. So we're going to see what we can do about that. Well, the idea is actually quite simple, and using parts just from local shops. So what I've got here is like a junction box kind of thing from J-Car. It cost me $27, $28. It's a sealed unit, and I think it's going to be just wide enough to fit the housing and everything in. I want to try and utilise the rubber mount that it comes with. I'll see how that goes, but with this thickness, I should be able to do that. The other thing is the insulation. So this is a Bunnings job. Look, it doesn't say insulation on this. It says self-adhesive foam roll, but when you Google it and you look on their website, it actually says it's for sound dampening as well. And I can understand why. It's a fairly thick foam. It's 1.8 meters in this roll, so the idea is to line that box with this stuff. And then I've also picked up, while I was there, some black bumpers from Bunnings, and that's just so I can mount the box itself to the chassis. And still have that, and I don't want to have that hard mount on the chassis where the tick can reverberate through. So that's the idea, and you know, for what's that, about $40. The idea is to make this affordable but effective. So let's get into it. So essentially what I've done is I've got this this junction box, or whatever it is, and okay, first thing I've done is I've drilled through some pilot holes for me wiring and for me fuel hoses. So I've just got I don't want to pull it down. I've got me clear fuel hose that goes through this hole and through the other hole, maintaining a 45-degree angle. And I'll be able to put it a little bit past that 45, which would be good. Now, for the fuel pump, I had to cut the wires because the plug on the end is just too big to go through here, and I want to try and soundproof this as much as possible, obviously, and having big gaping holes not ideal. So I've cut that off, and I'll resolder that once everything's through and in position. So the bolt through the center is just for the original mount that comes with the fuel pump. So that way it's not just floating in here, I can actually have it a little bit more secured. I've got the rubber bump stops on the back. I've drilled through all the way. I was originally going to be putting these little 10 gauge self tappers in. That's what I was just drilling out just then, but then when I put it through the hole, I realised because of the rubber grommet, the rubber bump stop, it doesn't actually go home enough into the chassis, so I've had to change them out. I've got some of the same gauge screws, but just in a lot longer. Oh, wish I used this to just drill the holes out anyway, would have been a lot easier, but anyway, that's what I've got. So now you would have seen, so what I was doing is I was cutting the foam, basically the shape for the box. So I want to have a piece in the base, a piece in the lid, and wrap the surrounds. So once that's done, and I've cut the sections out for the hoses and electricals to go through, then I'll place the lid on it, and I'll see how much room I've got. If I've got any excess area, I might even just pack that full of foam or something else, just to try and get rid of any chance of sound coming through. But we'll see how we go. As you can see, I've just packed a heap of foam around this stuff. I've got, a fair bit left over. I've just packed the base of it around the sides, tried to shape it. It's obviously not a pretty job, but I only want to sort of stop the sound from getting through, so it doesn't have to be too perfect. And then on the lid, I've done pretty much the same thing. I've just cut a little bit of a cutout for the bulge here in where the center of the pump is. And I'll put the lid back on and we'll see how we go. Okay, the box is in. Only thing left to do now is I've got to resolder up the fuel pump cable, power lead, and then run some conduit over the rest of the fuel line. We've got a storm about to hit, so I'll do this while the storm's rolling in, and then we might do a test if it stays away long enough. So everything's back together, it's all boxed in, and at the unit it just sounds deeper, but the problem is that now not only can you hear it inside the van, you can feel it on the rails. You can feel it at the other end too, at the tank. It's actually a deep thud through the van. This is definitely not a success, and I'm going to have to do something with this because it's not working as intended. Well, disappointed is an understatement. So it was definitely a deeper sound, but it wasn't necessarily quieter, not by much anyway. The biggest thing I noticed is that I could actually feel, I was over at the heater itself, and I was just holding onto the chassis as I was just listening for the startup, and I could feel the tick through the chassis. And then when I got inside, I could actually hear it like a deep tick through the whole van. So it's taken 7 or 8 steps backwards from where it was standard. And I think the issue is probably how secure it is. It's mounted really secure with 4 bolts or 4 screws bolted directly into the chassis. So the last time it was hooked up, when it was only hooked up temporarily, it was just stuck with a magnet on the chassis. So I reckon that's part where the problem is. It's actually just mounted solid and it's just pounding through the rail. So I don't know what the answer is yet. I'm going to have to take a day or so and have a think about it, and we'll come back to it. I've spent the last couple of days just thinking about how this thing went from an okay sound to bouncing through the van. And I've done a couple of different tests trying to work it out over the last few days. I think I've worked out why, and I think it's a combination of 2 things. So the bolt I put through the back of the box to essentially house that rubber bracket that goes around the pump itself, that was essentially transferring whatever sound it had into the plastic box. And then I bolted the box, or screwed it, but attached it straight onto a chassis. So the sound was going directly, even though I had the pump and everything housed and boxed in and had soundproofing around it, I was transferring all that sound that was in the box straight back in through the chassis. And I think the fact that it made it so deep made it just echo through the whole thing. So it went from manageable, standard, to annoying and really loud, modified. So anyway, the last couple of days I've been thinking about it, and I think the answer is, well, the way I'll test it is going to be to get rid of that bolt in the center. The pump itself is going to have to be sort of more or less floating inside that box. Not floating, but not attached to anything. And I need to separate the back of the box so that when the screws go in there, it's not attached to the box. So I'm going to play with that. Alright, so the first thing I'm looking at is, I mean, while it's ugly, it's inside a box, I don't really care. I think the soundproofing, the multi-layers of soundproofing is the right way to go. It definitely quietened the box down, and like I said, I've done a couple of tests beforehand. It did make a difference, so I'm happy with that. It's just how it's attached. So I'm gonna put the lid and everything back on this. You can see I've taken that bolt out, so it's completely gone. So nothing actually physically securing this thing inside it except for the packing around it. So, and that's, well, like I said, ugly, but it's in there. So that's step one. Righto, so I've got the box put back together, and I've still got these rubber self-adhesive bumps on the back, and I'm not going to take them off because I think anywhere where I can reduce the box contact in the chassis will be beneficial. But what I've done is I had a little bit of leftover canopy tub liner, floor liner, just this stuff here, and all I've done is I've cut it out just to sit on the back here. So the idea is that I'll be attaching this to the chassis, then attaching the box to it. Method to be determined, but yeah, that's the idea. So basically any noise that comes out of the box is absorbed into the rubber feet and then into this, and not directly into the chassis. I'll have a look at that. It hasn't stopped it, but it's definitely quieter than what it was. I'll put the camera right next to it. You'll hear it. It's like a, instead of a tick, it's more of a, if you had to put it to a word, it's more of a clock sound. Clock, clock, clock. But have a listen. Sitting under here with my ear right next to it, and as you would have heard, you can hear it. But the purpose of this mission, there's plenty of videos. If you want to look it up and work out why this thing makes that sound, there's actually videos around that does that. So there's actually some guy that dissected it, cut a section of this thing out about 1 inch or ½ inch wide, and shows the piston inside it moving back and forward, and it's metal on metal, and that's why I was doing it. The point is, you're never going to eliminate that sound while we have this sort of a pump in it. And like I said, I'm right under here, right next to it, and it's not even annoying here. Let's have a bit of a walk around the outside here. Standing right next to the van, obviously, and I cannot hear it at all. I can hear the exhaust, but I cannot hear that pump at all. So that's fixed the outside of it, seems like. I'm going to check inside. I can't hear it in here at all either. I can hear the fan. Fan's working down there. But I can't hear the pump inside. And I'm at this end of the van. The other end of the van's where the bed is. That's the part I cared about. So nothing at the living area. Obviously nothing at the bed, because that's way too far away. Nothing outside, but you can hear a slight noise when your ear's right next to it under the van. Not bad. So, in conclusion, my question is why? Why has it been made out to be so hard? I'm not saying I've silenced it. I'm not trying to silence it. Like I said, it's impossible when you've got metal on metal inside a metal casing. But to make it quieter, I spent $45. Granted, I didn't get it first go, but if you if you adhere to the simple rule of don't mount the noisy thing to the metal object, it's pretty simple. So if we're being realistic in what we actually set out to achieve, it was never to eliminate the sound. You can't do it. It's a metal piston inside a metal housing that's constantly clapping together. There's no O-rings, there's no oil in it. It's just bare metal on metal. So we're not eliminating the sound. We're setting out to try and make it quieter so you don't really notice it. And I think that's what we've done. So from outside the van, you can't hear it. On the inside of the van, where we're going to be living or camping, we can't hear it in there either. It's probably largely because outside the van it's muffled a little bit by exhaust. I mean, I can't really tell. I can't isolate the exhaust to tell, but I can't hear it out here at all. And inside where the vent is, well, that's where I was standing because that's in the living area. I can't hear it at all. I couldn't hear it in the bedroom, so I can't hear it at all inside, so that's good. So I think in summary, we're pretty much successful on this side of things. And for the cost of $45, the reason I went that box instead of some other alternative is that it seals waterproof tight. That was that J-car job. Yeah, and you can fit insulation in and around it, that sort of thing too. And it sort of matches the size of the chassis, so it helps a bit. The insulation stuff from Bunnings was really easy to find, and for under $10, that's good. And heaps of us still got some left over. But if you're a genius, and you can come up with a way to pump what I think's 0.02 milliliters or whatever it is per cycle electronically, where you don't need a piston, then I think you're a millionaire overnight. Give that a crack and let me know if you do, because that'd be great. James Browning, someone or other from the UK, he's done something similar I've seen. And apparently if you contact him on his email address, he'll apparently maybe get back to you, but I haven't seen anything from him or relative to what he's been doing on the internet since after 2022, so he may not have been able to be successful with everything. But there's a couple of videos floating around where people have tried it and it worked for him. But yeah, anyway, and using what we've got, I think it's a bit of a win. I'm definitely not happy with the way it looks, even though it's under the van. I mean, who really cares? It's not really going to be under here all that often. I think it's just the zip ties I'm not 100% happy with, but look, it is what it is. If I could invent an olefin box or something that slides inside another box and I can secure it to the chassis that way, I'd be more than happy, but I don't have that technology or ability, so I'm pretty happy with what we've done. If you've got other ideas or you've tried something else that you thought was successful, I'd love to hear about it. These are things that nearly every single camper deals with, so if you've got something, let us know. Keen to hear about it. Next time.